We're back with this Monday Motivation, speaking about breaking up with stress. No better expert in the house than Dr. Gary Foresman, who is an integrative medicine, and you're a regular medical doctor. And you've dealt with, I'm sure stress is like the #1 killer, right?
It is. It's the #1 cause of disease, and that's why we all need to address it. It's funny when you were doing your thing up front, and most people don't even know they're in a relationship with stress, let alone having a breakup with it. So the first step is the recognition part, you know. So most of my patients who come to see me have the questionnaire, and there's this little section about stress, and list your stress level. And it's never, if they circle none, absolutely, it's the single greatest problem in their life because, you know, denial, not just a river in Egypt. And it's never been wrong. I mean, and so like, and even if they list mild, yeah, I know they're not telling the truth. But, you know, so many people, when they come to the doctor, they don't want to admit their stress because they're so afraid the doctor's going to go immediately, antidepressant. And that's kind of the fear they have, or they're going to make it think it's all in my head, and they want those physical reasons, right? So when people come to see an MD, they actually want the physical cause for why they feel that way, often not wanting to deal at this level. And so when I went into so many systems of healing after internal medicine, orthomolecular medicine, and functional medicine, I just found that we had different ways of approaching this kind of very isolated, skin-encapsulated ego. And they were better than just using drugs. But most people, when they come to a doctor like me, they still want to not deal with the problem and just take a supplement instead of taking a drug. And that's not what we're looking for.
We need more doctors like you.
And so
we really do.
What I love so much about Dr. Foresman is that he is the middle path, right? The middle path of medicine. It's beyond just the traditional Western medicine that we know, or Eastern. Really, you've integrated it in a way that's very, truly unique.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about your approach.
Well, you know, I used to say, you know, natural medicine says this, and Western medicine says this, and truth is somewhere in the middle. And the truth is not sexy, folks. I'm sorry, it just isn't. You know, that people love this is the cause of all disease. Parasites, the cause of all disease. And it's just not true. You know, it's just a cause of disease. And they want that one explanation for things. And furthermore, like when we look at this world today, you cannot understand a human being without looking at their holes in terms of their inside. There are all kinds of levels to the person that you guys have done such a great job when we're talking about happiness as being a job from the inside out. And we talk about this, people are looking for, instead of having an agentic, meaning agency kind of happiness, they're looking outwards for happiness. And you see that reflected in so much of their health issues. So the health issues are kind of, for me, an in to try to get them to take a look at something, you know, to really dive deeper. And you have to meet people where they're at, of course, you know, and so not everybody's willing to dive there, you know, and you have to get to know them for a little while and give them some vitamin D and some SAMe or some other types of things, and they start to feel a little bit better, and then they feel a little bit better. You know what? All right, I'll look at that diet thing you told me about, you know, and then they'll change their diet a little bit, and then finally they'll get to that place where they trust you enough to dive a little deeper and say, hey, I'm willing to look at this stress thing, you know, and so, because so many people don't recognize, I always tell people stress is like that, the volume in the car radio when you know, Sweet Child of Mine comes on and you crank it up and crank it up, and you get home, and until you get in the car the next morning, you don't realize, damn, man, you know, and you never, with stress, you never get to step out of it. And so most people, even when the stress volume is up here, when it comes down here, they think they're not stressed. And it's just because they got so used to here that they don't realize this is damn stressed if that was like, you know, serious stress.
Well,
and so
it's interesting too, because I think there's a level of shame that surrounds stress too. Because especially for me personally, I don't want to admit that I'm stressed out about anything really. Oh, I've got this, right? Well, admittedly, I'm so stressed out beyond belief, but I don't want to admit to it.
Yes. And of course, and that's the thing is, you know, it is like that secret confession after, you know, like most people feel like they're confessing to me, all right, you know, I ate cereal and I'm stressed, you know, it's like, it's okay, you know, you can let go of the cereal thing. I'm a paleo doctor, as everybody knows, and they never want to admit they, you know, life isn't worth living without bagels was one of my favorite quotes. I was like, no, it's like, all right, well, we're going to leave the bagels for you. We'll work around the bagel thing, you know, and so, and when you hear stuff like that, you really got to say, wow, you know, there's something going on deeper. And, you know, this kind of model for healing is the good, the true, and the beautiful. And, you know, the true is objective truth. And honestly, today's Western doctor does not do enough. There's not enough motivation for the MD who has a 5-minute visit. So let's give him a little empathy here. to do all the tests necessary to figure out the physical things getting in the way of you healing. You know, so when you do enough lab tests and you look at, wow, you need some fish oils, you need to deal with this inflammation, and you get the person physically more healthy, now they're willing to take a look at the interiors as well, because you cannot heal them completely until. And no physician heals. So let's be clear. You saw on the sideline, tell a few jokes and give them some guidelines, and people heal themselves, right? I mean, you know, and so, but you have to open up. I always talk about what I'm trying to do with you is kind of open up a whole new toolbox to you of tools that you didn't even know existed. And usually meditation, even though on my first handout I say meditation, single most important thing we can do individually or collectively as a species. So when I talk about my practices, I would not live without meditation.
And why is it so important? Can you explain a little bit to people why it's so important?
Because, you know, Adyashanti is one of the best meditation instructors and said the goal of meditation is to see everything exactly as it is, no manipulation. There is an isness to this world, okay? And so, and if you sit and you're just with yourself, and that's the first part, is developing the relationship with the self. Atma Darshan is what they call it in Ayurveda, the direct experience of the self. Most people aren't comfortable with who they are. They go looking outwards to define who they are. And so that's that looking for, and we all want somebody to tell you you're beautiful and I love you. And those things are great. But if our happiness is dependent on those things, we'll never be well. And as we get older, this is so important, almost every tradition says as we get towards 50 and above, we're going into the wise woman or wise man phase of our life. And we should be honoring the depths of the human being more so than just the superficialities. And so, and there's nothing wrong. We want everybody to be healthy and look good and all those other things, but we're driven by something more than that. We're driven by these things, dharma, you know, am I expressing my unique talents in service to humanity? And so, I had a recent visit with someone, and you know, in the long and short of it, I go, look at your labs. I go, with everything you're telling me you're doing, these labs, they ain't you. So what's going on? Okay, so you say you're eating this way. I wake up and do these things, and eventually it was like, I want to live in Jerusalem, and we're living in this little podunk. He lives in this place called Nepoma, which is not Jerusalem. I said, well, then you need to, and then he had the excuses. I have to sell this and do that, and so no, you know what you need to do? You need to let go of those things. You're 65 now, you need to go to Jerusalem if that is your calling, because you will not be healthy at this age unless you follow this purpose thing, who I am. And most people have lost sight of that because they gave up who they are.
But this is the most important point that you're making. This is the most important thing that I really, really want to get across. We think that the stress is because the phone, because of what we're eating, because of we're not getting enough sleep, when really you start taking it back and there's something really deeper that's stressing you out, and it's not living your truth.
You know, because when I do my whole stress management thing, you know, the biggest thing is, you can compare stress to like the rowboat, and the rowboat's sinking, and you know, there's stress unloading, which is minimizing the stress coming in. Very smart. Taking some things out of our life that are sinking us, okay? Stress relieving, which is, you know, getting stuff out, heavy exercise, getting it out of you. But the thing that people don't get is they in a boat. It's all perceptual. Most of it is how you perceive the world. That is the biggest stressor. Most people's internal conversation. There's a disease called self-critical perfectionism. 99% among women, okay, who are high-striving, high-performing, okay, and that internal conversation is the stress. Okay.
Oh my God, so, I'm diagnosed right here, right now. Now I know my problem.
And it's an impossible standard to live up to. And so, you don't realize that once you get past all those other things, you are much different than a rowboat. And so it's who you are, and that goes to answering your question. Once you know who you are, and you see yourself as part of humanity, not a skin-encapsulated ego, as we talk about, when you see the world from that perspective, there's very few actual stressors.
I love that, and I would add on to that and say it's seeing yourself as part of humanity, and even beyond that, seeing yourself as divinity, as part of divinity itself, right? Because it's this belief that you're a body or you're a mind, I feel in my life, that has always sort of encouraged me to stress out, because I'm always trying to fix something endlessly.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I love the
that's all that step, because knowing thyself goes so much deeper than just knowing who you are. And so, as you know, and so when I read your book, Awakening, and all these steps, and we were talking about, one of my favorite Deepak books was Seven Spiritual Laws of Success.
Yes.
Because it's just, you know, I think he said he wrote that book on one plane flight from New York to LA, and there was nothing new in there. And then in the spiritual world, there really isn't anything new, which is why it's not really that sexy, by the way.
That's what we call new thoughts.
You know,
new thoughts.
you know, it's like, wow, you know, it's like somebody told me to be silent. Oh, that's exciting,
wow,
you know?
profound.
You know, do you have an app for that? You know, and so no, I don't have an app for your silence. You know, and I know you have apps. I'm just saying, and there's other things you can do,
What are you
but
trying to say?
you got to do your own work. Yeah, sorry, that was a damn bad segue in there.
So wait, but let's just. I want to encapsulate this. So as somebody that's dealing with stress, and they've got so stressed that they're actually having physical symptoms of things. So they come in, they do their blood test, they do look at that, but they have to figure out what's really going on. That's the cause and creating the stress.
Yeah.
So for you, integrative in the middle is really bringing those two together.
Very much so, and there is a role for medicine. So, you know, if I have somebody with anxiety, I say, listen, this is like if you have an asthmatic and you give them an inhaler, it's a really good idea. You treat their asthma well enough, so hopefully they never need their inhaler. For the anxiety person, you have them have a medicine for anxiety, whatever the doctor chooses to use, and say, we're going to get to the point where you never need this medicine, but we don't say you should never take it. And the problem in today's world is because Western medicine is a business model, okay? And most know it's a disease care system. We want to make you sure you feel your disease. This is a real disease, and no, you're kind of screwed. You need drugs. And that's the business model for it. And everybody keeps getting more and more drugs, and they get more and more unwell. And when we see this addiction epidemic and the opiate overdoses, there was a time, not even that long ago, for me to get recertified for my California state license. I had to take this pain management course, which says you're not prescribing enough narcotics.
Wow.
Okay. And that's how inculcated into the system to even maintain your license.
Wow.
You have to do.
That is
and of
profound.
course, you can read the material, you can answer the questions right, and go, well, that was bullshit. Sorry.
You're good.
I'm not a good editor, anyways. And as it goes on, then it really starts coming out. And then that's the thing for as a doctor, when I have the training, I can look at it from a distance and say, I can see why this is here. They're trying to get doctors to prescribe more medicines, make the pharmaceutical industry more money. You don't even have to call that wrong, because it's not wrong. It just is what it is. And so, but you see, once the doctors started pulling back and people started using street drugs, you see this epidemic of overdoses. And kind of to what we said earlier, when people list their stress as being even moderate, they'll often say, what do you, and the follow-up to that question is, what do you do about it? And it's like usually margaritas. I watch TV. And, you know, and those aren't stress reduction mechanisms. Those are stress distractions. And most of the world, and that's what the addictions we see out there are primarily stress distractions, primarily from themselves. And so I had a tough day, 3 margaritas. I had a tough day, heroin. I had a tough day, 6 hours of TV. I think America watches something like 6 hours a day of TV, something crazy like that. And you see that with foods and everything else. We're sublimating our own issues because it's actually difficult to deal with these things head on. Another great quote from meditation is the way that most people, so meditation is difficult, but the way most people live their life is impossible. So really difficult is a step in the right direction. So when I take on meditation with people, and this goes back to the first thing like we were talking about, most women who come to my meditation classes are so overburdened. They're doing the 14-hour work days and things like that. And I said, the first step for you is to stress unload. Don't even meditate, because if they try to take on meditation, I've essentially given them one other thing to fail at. And I say, listen, you have to create your life up. We were talking earlier about my life. I've set my life up so I can do my yogas and meditations and things like that, because they're a top priority for me. And it goes into the world we see today. Without getting too political, you see horrible toxic masculinity and not enough femininity in the world, and this agency without communion. And what we need is to bring this balance back. So the middle path really is, as much as anything, balancing masculine energy, which can be wonderful, agency, which is I want to survive and I want to be the best me possible, in the context of communion, which is there's a greater, we're a part of something so much bigger. And if we don't embrace that and see how we're part of something much bigger, then we're all in imbalance. And that's why we have to look into our world, balance the world around us too, peace in the world starts with peace within. Okay, so do your own work first. Okay, and so because most people aren't peaceful within, they're all mad at somebody protesting or something, but they're not doing their own work. So we have to find our mindfulness practice. I love my yard. I do mindful gardening. I have a Zen path that I do. I have so many different meditation techniques and didgeridoos and mantra-based meditations. It's a world to experience. It's just like exercise, though. There's different meditative pathways for everybody, and they don't really seem to know about them. And they just said, well, I tried TM and it sucked, you know, and I go, well, that's fine. Then all meditation sucks, not a good conclusion. It isn't, you know, you say, well, have you tried mindfulness practices or affirmations and these other things? And you can get them going in those directions. So
my mom just started hypnotism, and she goes, it's kind of actually like meditation because they just get you into the state. She goes, I think I'm actually meditating. And I go, I don't care how you get there. That's awesome. It's so rad, right?
And that just that sense of peacefulness and timelessness. And you always teach meditation in terms of what it is not, so the mind doesn't grasp onto what it is. You know.
Love it. Well, we love your work. It's amazing. You're profound. We want to give a shout out to Elle Russ also, who introduced us.
We love you, Elle.
Love you, Elle.
Elle was wonderful.
Sharing your community and continuing your support. Where can people find and work with you?
I'm at www.middlepathmedicine.com, and we also do the Instagrams and Facebooky things and stuff like that as well too. We're just trying to get into that world and find out the world of social media, and you know, trying to putting ourselves out there a little bit, and that's part of why we're here. It's you know, so we have so many different forums now. But go to our website, you can find out a little bit about ourselves. I'm trying to make these knowledge available to everybody at no charge. It costs to see me. However, I want most people to do the healing themselves. Become your own healer, please. Okay, I just can't emphasize that enough.
Thank you so much. So appreciate you.
Stay tuned. We'll be back with more on Good Morning
Sorry
LaLa.
if I rambled.